Hi, I'm Edwin Rutch, and I'm the director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and this is our Empathy Circle project to bridge the political cultural divide. And we're bringing together conservatives and progressives together to dialogue with each other. And this is our first circle with some progressives. And at a later point in time, we'll do another circle with conservatives and then bring participants from both circles together to have across the aisle discussion. So we want to begin with just a short just introduction from each of us. As I mentioned, I'm Edwin Rutch, director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and for about the past 10 years I've been working on building a more empathic world and do all kinds of different projects around doing that. And I'm located here in El Cerrito, which is near Berkeley, California, in the Bay Area. So if you'd each like to just go around and introduce yourselves and maybe where you're from and a little bit about your political background or whatever you'd like to share.
Should I start?
Yeah, anybody jump in.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I am in San Diego, and I really have no political credentials at all. It's just something I'm interested in. So, like many people, when the election happened, I went, I can't ignore this anymore. So here I am, learning and figuring it out. That's all I got.
Okay. Andrew, maybe I'll just point you out next to keep things moving.
Sure. So my name is Andrew Westfall. In my professional life, I'm a physicist at UC Berkeley. In my personal life, I am married. I have two teenage daughters. One is a freshman in college and one is a sophomore in high school. Like Jessica, I found myself as a political neophyte after the election, finding myself wanting to take action. So I'm part of Indivisible Berkeley as a result of that. So I guess I've been living in Berkeley for about 30 years, but I have a background which is maybe a little different than most Californians. I grew up, part of my childhood was spent in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, and so I lived in what is now a deeply red state. It was not so much when I lived there a long time ago and went to high school there, and but I feel that I have maybe a little bit more exposure to conservative side of the country than some, and so so I try to come back to that and use that as a touchstone as much as I can.
Oh, great, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Edwin, for bringing this together. It's terrific to be able to participate. My name is Karen Tamarius, and my professional training is in medicine. I was trained as a psychiatrist, although I'm not currently practicing. I also have a background in political psychology, and I had kind of drifted away from that while I was pursuing my medical training. But once the election happened, I realized it was time to start using my political psychology training again and background, and I decided I needed to do something. So I started an organization called SMART, Social Media Approaches for Respect and Tolerance, to help liberals to learn how to have transformative civil discussions with conservatives about politics.
Great, thank you. I think does everybody see her video or is it just fine?
I see Karen, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, then so what we're going to do is I'll introduce the empathy circle process. So this is a kind of a simple process for slowing down the conversation and making sure everyone feels heard to their satisfaction. And the basics of it is one person will select someone to speak to, so it will be the active speaker or the speaker, and they'll select someone to speak to, and they'll have up to 5 minutes to share whatever's on their mind. And the person that's listening will give a reflection back of their understanding of what the person is saying. So as the speaker, you share, you want to give a little bit of a pause after you said a few sentences to allow the listener to reflect back what they're understanding that you have said. So you can speak, like I said, up to 5 minutes. You can just do a minute or however long you want. And when you're done, you can just say like, oh, I feel fully heard, which is just saying that you're complete in what you're saying. And then it will become the turn of the listener to select someone in the circle or the group to speak to. They will speak about whatever's up for them, and then that person will reflect back. And we basically go around like that for the time allotted. We've allotted 90 minutes for this. And so it's basically a simple process, but it really slows the dialogue down. And this empathic listening process is also core to the conflict mediation process. So it can really help to foster connection and understanding. I'll also be the timekeeper, so I'll keep track of the 5 minutes and then give a little bit of a warning if you're getting close to that. So to begin with, if one of you would like to start, we're going to have the topic. Our topic today is how do you feel about the current political situation in the country? But you can also just speak about anything that's on your mind or your heart. So you're totally free to talk about whatever kind of is alive for you. But we do have that general topic if you want to address that. So maybe to model it, one of you could start and then select me to speak to, and I'll model the reflection, and then we can start from there. And I think we're ready to go.
I can get us started.
Okay.
So when I try to reflect on what my overwhelming emotional response is to the situation right now, it's sadness. I see our country as having a tremendous amount of potential, and the political institutions we've built are powerful and have the potential to do tremendous things if Americans can figure out how to talk with each other respectfully, and that we are not doing that right now makes me really, really sad.
Okay, let me give you can reflect a little bit here, just step in. So I'm hearing you see a huge potential in the country, and that if we can work together, could really do a lot. But because of the current political situation, you feel a lot of sadness that that's maybe not being actualized.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the challenge for me is how to take that emotion, which if I allow it to overwhelm myself, leads to depression, to actually to use it to motivate myself to try to do something to actually manifest our potential and to get something done. And for me, that's what SMART is all about. It's about taking those really negative emotions and trying to turn them into a positive force for change.
Okay, so I'm hearing you have a lot of negative emotions. There's a great deal of sadness, but instead of allowing that to go into maybe depression, you want to take action. And the way that you're taking action is to create this organization, SMART.
Absolutely.
Is there more? Do you feel heard?
I feel heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then I'll speak to Jessica. Yeah, so let me just reset the timer here. And so for me, I grew up in a conservative family in Sacramento, California. So I feel kind of comfortable with both sides. I think, Andrew kind of mentioned that too. So in my family, I would say everybody's pretty conservative. They're both Trump supporters. My brother's like an active Trump supporter. But we actually have these empathy circles in my family. So I really see this as a way of, structuring the dialogue so that it kind of, slows the dialogue down, makes sure everyone's heard, and that we can move forward from there.
Okay, interesting. So your family's overwhelmingly conservative. Sounds like pretty much everybody is conservative, or almost everybody, even active Trump supporters. And so you've noticed that the empathy circle format in your family has helped sort of slow the conversation and make it more productive, rather than, I guess, just people yelling at each other, which maybe is a risk of happening with politics.
Yeah, and it actually happened that I had talked about empathy for a long time in my family, and they didn't really understand what I was talking about. And then once a fight started between my sister-in-law and my mother, and it was actually on Christmas, and they were going at each other, and don't you talk to me this way, this is all your fault, and all this kind of stuff, and it was really heating up. I mean, it was just getting knocked down, dragged out, and it's like Christmas, right? And it sounded like the whole day was going to just blow up. And it was about where the gifts had been kept, and the children got into it. But I was able to step into that and listen to both sides, and then help them to have dialogue with each other, kind of this empathic dialogue, exactly what we're doing right now with the reflection, and kind of keep them on track. And then it kind of grew into a whole family empathy circle. And we kind of got down into the real issues of what was really going on, which was really about belonging, feeling like we belonged in the family. And it ended with hugs all around. And I said, oh, this is empathy. And they said, hey, this is pretty good. We'll do more of this. So.
So you had sort of an on-the-job interview. Your sister and your mother-in-law were sister and mother-in-law. Is that right?
Yeah, mother and sister-in-law. Uh-huh.
Sorry, mother and sister-in-law were sort of arguing, and it was getting personal and emotional, and sort of people weren't hearing each other. And so you stepped in, and you were able to slow down the course of things and have your sister-in-law and your mother hear what each other were saying, with sort of you as the active listener, helping to digest and represent the ideas that were being shared and slow things down. And it was really successful. It sort of saved Christmas to the extent that
and it ended with hugs all around too.
It ended with hugs. Yeah.
And then we do these empathy circles on a sort of a semi-regular basis going forward now. So it's my mother says, "Oh, it's so nice when we can talk peacefully together."
Wonderful.
And even doing it with my little nephews and nieces. I have a 5-year-old niece, and her and her brothers were always fighting, and I do empathy circles with them. And she says, "Oh, I like empathy circles. Let's do it again."
Cool. So you've been able to use this process not just with sort of us liberal hippies, but with real people too. So it's helped out in your family who liked the process enough to agree to do it somewhat regularly. And you've also used the process with little kids to help them interact more peacefully with your nieces and nephews. Exactly.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you. Fully heard. So you can select who you'd like to speak to, and so you're next.
I am?
Yes, so you can select who you'd like to.
Okay.
Yeah, you speak to whoever you would like to speak to.
Sure, I'll speak to Karen. So I'm not super knowledgeable about the ins and outs of politics. I read the news far less than the rest of you. I do find it very interesting to hear. So a lot of people's emotional response is sadness. Mine is very much still in the anger phase. I'll pause there.
So Jessica, what I'm hearing from you is that you feel like you don't know quite as much about politics as everyone else. You don't follow it maybe quite as closely. And your emotional response right now is less sadness than it is anger.
Yes, exactly. And it's less rampaging anger than it was at first. So I feel myself moving toward being able to have more productive conversations. So I don't have much of a reflection on well, I do a little. So I guess my reflection on the nationwide political scenario is that we all need to get better at emotional intelligence. I'm going to pause because I'm rambling.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you think the nation as a whole needs to get better at emotional intelligence, and you aren't quite as angry as you used to be. You used to be a lot more angry, and you're starting to move toward being less angry.
Exactly. So yes, I think my overall huge takeaway from this year has been meeting people's emotional needs is not optional. It's not a fringe talent. It's central to everything we do. And I think that's been reinforced in the books that I've read this year and in, the personal relationships I've developed this year and in my work life and in my political reflections.
So one of the things you've discovered this year is that connecting with people emotionally is perhaps a lot more important than you realized before, that it's not enough to focus on the intellectual aspects or the arguments, but if you're not meeting someone's emotional needs, you're not going to make progress towards your goals.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
So I think I'd like to talk to Andrew. And,
okay.
Andrew, I guess this might shift the discussion a little bit, but one of the things I've been wanting to talk with you about is I was really excited when I first saw that someone who is in Indivisible was emphasizing the importance of reaching out to Trump supporters. Because until I'd seen you talking about that at the forum with George Lakoff and Arlie Hochschild, I hadn't really heard much coming directly from anybody leading an Indivisible group about that.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a little frustration maybe with the Indivisible movement in its insularity. Is that a fair way to express your frustration?
Insularity. I would have to have you define how you're using that word, but let me try to clarify my emotions around this.
Yeah.
I think what I've felt is a little bit of concern about Indivisible's methods, that maybe they're overemphasizing political techniques that have proven to be counterproductive, and may, while important, don't capture the whole picture.
Okay, I'm curious to know what you mean by counterproductive, because and the reason part of the reason I asked that is to reflect, but also because that would be surprising to hear for most Indivisible members, because I think most people are thinking, oh, we're doing the right thing here, we're doing what's going to be the most effective thing.
Right.
So yeah, so what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and I do think I should add, just to make it totally clear, that I think the vast majority of what Indivisible does is great and utterly important, and is a supplement to what we in Smart do. We aren't, we're complementary. We're not like adversarial or working at cross purposes. But I do feel like sometimes what I see is a demonization of the other side, and a rigidity that makes it hard for Indivisible to accomplish some of its goals.
Right. Yeah. So I hear your concern that Indivisible is that Indivisible may be increasing partisan tensions. Is that a
good
way to express it, rather than the opposite? Right.
And I don't think it needs to, which I think was why I was so excited when I saw that you were thinking about this other aspect of political activism, which is reaching out, not just reaching out to politicians or trying to mobilize people who agree with you, but also to talk with people who currently disagree with you to try to get them to understand your point of view.
Right. Yeah. So, that you're feeling that encouraged that at least there are some people in Indivisible who are feeling the need to reach across the great divide separating us. Yeah. Right.
I think that's a fair characterization.
Yeah.
I feel hard.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm next, and let's see. So who has not listened yet? I guess it's Edwin. Is that right?
You can choose whoever you would like. So if you'd like to
like. Okay. Well, actually, maybe I will choose Jessica. But is it actually? Can I ask a question? Does it necessarily need to be one person, or can everybody?
Yes, one person. We try to keep it to one person and keep that
just as a
going, just so that stay within that process.
Yeah. Well, just thinking about my state of mind in all of this, I echo what people have said here about sadness and anger. I would add to those fear, for sure. Confusion. It feels like we're in a funhouse where it just feels like everything is distorted and it's kind of unmoored. I feel unmoored from any kind of, at least political reality. It just feels really disorienting. So those are the negative things, but there are actually positive things too. And so one of the wonderful things that's come out of this is my discovery of Rebecca Solnit, who is a wonderful writer. And in fact, I just gave one of her books about San Francisco. It's sort of a San Francisco tour guide, of all things. It's very quirky, to my wife for her birthday a couple of days ago. But she's written a couple of books that have almost become, one book particularly has been almost a Bible. It's called Hope in the Dark, and I just use it to ground myself and to kind of stay sane. But there's another book which is called A Paradise Built in Hell, and it's about how people come together during disasters. And she's picked, I think it's 5 different disasters in history, starting with the San Francisco earthquake. And the point, I think one of her main points is that, contrary to sort of the stereotype, which is everybody, in a crisis, everybody's running around panicking and it becomes a sort of, dog eat dog world. Instead, people really have an instinct to come together. And that was certainly my experience in 1989 with the Loma Prieta earthquake.
Andrew, may I just suggest you give some pause for Jessica.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. Thank you. I'll pause.
Thank you. My working memory is not amazing. Thank you. So your emotions are kind of running the gamut. You're feeling sad, you're feeling angry, and you're feeling deeply confused and unmoored, that the things happening around you just don't make sense or incomprehensible, and probably hard to control because they're hard to even understand.
Yeah.
So your negative emotions are running the gamut, but you're seeing some as well. So you've read Hope in the Dark, is that right?
Hope in the Dark, yeah.
What was the first book?
Mhm.
The Rebecca Hope in the
Rebecca
Dark.
Solnit.
Yeah. Which you've really, really enjoyed. Rebecca Sol's at SOL.
SOL
for anybody watching.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. Solnit, okay. And so you've given that to your wife for her birthday, and it's been kind of an anchor point for you. As has, tell me the other book.
So yeah, the other one is A Paradise Built in Hell.
What was the disaster book?
Yeah.
A Paradise Built in Hell. And so what you're seeing is also some of the brighter side of human nature, that when things are really bad and scary, people find each other, bond together, and sort of try to improve things.
Yeah. Right. And that's been, I mean, I can't use another word for it. It's been fun, actually. I mean, in the face of what I perceive to be at least a disaster, that you know, the Indivisible groups but other people too. That's Indivisible is what I've chosen to focus on, but I know that there are lots of other people in different groups working together. And it really was like the Loma Prieta earthquake. You know, for about a week on BART, people were just spontaneously talking to each other. It was the most amazing thing. You know, it was like suddenly we're all part of this community, and then, damn it, it went away. You know, it's like, couldn't we keep that up? But I think there's something to that. And I also would say that this book by Rebecca Solnit is hilarious. Like, one quote, somebody had set up a sort of soup kitchen in Golden Gate Park after the earthquake, and they put up a sign that said, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we go to Oakland."
That's the 5 minutes, so if you want to just reflect that, and then we'll put it on. Thank you.
Can someone explain Oakland to me first?
Oh, it's just it's maybe inside Bay Area. I mean to diss Oakland.
Okay, I got it. So it's got a bad rap. Okay, so, and while you are feeling these negative things, you're also feeling this unique emotional environment that results from tragedies, where people are less closed off, a little less naturally defensive than they might normally be, where people were coming together and sort of building community, building connections more easily. So their shields were down, they were chatting and laughing on BART, and feeding each other, and all these good things.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you, Jessica.
I've forgotten the order. Should I be doing something?
Oh yes, you. As soon as you've done listening, now you become the speaker. So we just keep going for the time allotted.
Ah. Oh, I get it. Okay. Okay, so I will speak to you, Edwin.
Okay.
Do we have any particular topic, or sort of what's on my mind?
It's what's on your mind, or you know, how you feel about the political situation, or whatever is on your mind. You're free to.
Okay, sounds good. So what I've been focusing on in the past weeks is, so I don't have conservative family members. I come from a sort of diehard liberal family, and unfriended all my Trump supporter friends on Facebook after the election, except for one whom I haven't yet mustered up the courage to talk to, someone who is a really good friend. when we lived in the same area. So my main interaction with conservatives is on Facebook pages dedicated to politics. And so what I've been focusing on in the past weeks is sort of processing my immediate negative emotional response to conservative political posts, calming myself down, and asking a question. So I don't try to say everything. I don't try to disprove their idea fully or anything like that, because I know it doesn't work. So instead, I ask a question. So if someone, sorry, I'm going to pause.
Okay, so you don't have a lot of friends who are Trump supporters, but it sounds like the ones that you had on Facebook, you kind of unfriended them except for one. And so your approach or strategy has been to actually reach out to sort of Trump supporters on Facebook or in the social media. And instead of sort of engaging, kind of arguing with them, you've been using sort of a questioning approach going. And what's kind of the strategy you've been using.
Right. So, for example, if someone posts something very negative about illegal immigrants, I would just ask a simple follow-up question about their beliefs. Maybe, what percentage of undocumented immigrants here would you guess are committing crimes or something? Some sort of probing question that maybe sets the conversation on a little bit of a discussing foot as opposed to a heated debate.
Okay. So the way you've been trying to engage is, again, by asking questions and kind of taking it into a more positive way and taking it out of a heated debate. So you're feeling that the questioning is a kind of a better way to take it out of the heated debate, I guess.
Yes, in fact, I've been amazed by, as I think Karen, oh no, she talked about that on Smart. So Karen has mentioned on the Facebook page we both belong to that even people you really, really disagree with are capable of having civil conversations. So it has been very surprising to me that even someone who is diametrically opposed to what I believe can have a calm and productive conversation with me if I am kind and calm.
Mm-hmm. So you have sort of an amazement that people who are really, in different ends of the spectrum can actually have a positive, productive discussion or debate if you kind of maintain your own calmness.
Right, exactly. If I maintain my own calmness and curiosity, and most importantly, I think willingness to admit that I don't know everything. That comes pretty naturally to me because I don't know everything going on in politics, not even close. I think I know less than the average Indivisible member and things like that. So I think being comfortable saying, I wonder if blah, blah, blah. I wonder if there are statistics for this, rather than pretending there's any set of facts that conclusively proves what I believe. So I am trying to be honest about not knowing, and I'm trying to be honest about which of my beliefs are built on emotion rather than truth, because for all of us, there are many like that.
Excuse me. Okay, so the way that you approach these dialogues is first have curiosity and kind of be curious about where people are. And the second is to maybe not be dogmatic, but know, maybe I don't know everything about this subject. And so I have sort of an openness and an open-mindedness about the different topics.
Right. And trying is the right word. So anger is definitely my default response to turmoil and struggle. And so I did want to make that clear, like if I'm painting some picture where I'm having these lovely flowing Pollyanna conversations, I'm not. So this has been a very recent Cindy for me, and it definitely comes and goes.
Okay, so you don't want to paint this, really rosy picture that you're open and just totally curious, because there's a lot of anger as well. So you kind of want to be, show that there's both of those, and this openness and curiosity, and is kind of a more of a recent development.
Super recent. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. There's a little bit of a lag between our audio, so I hope that didn't overlap or something. So, okay, well, I'll speak to Karen. Yeah, let's see what's up for me. Actually, I kind of like that Trump got elected in a sense, because he's kind of like a bull in a china shop, just kind of tearing down institutions, attacking. It's like the old, forms that the progressives and so forth have kind of set up, just aren't working anymore. And I've been talking about empathy for 10 years, and but not getting, there's kind of lip service to it, but there hasn't been real engagement, I find, in it from progressives.
So you feel like there are certain things that are actually advantageous about having someone like Trump in office, because he's such a disruptive force, that he also becomes kind of a catalyst for change. So problems that normally don't get addressed because they're kind of like things have solidified or become calcified over time, that really should be changed, don't get changed, kind of because of an institutional inertia almost. And sometimes it's helpful, like have someone come in and just tear things down so we can rebuild something better.
Yeah, it's kind of like creating a new space. Like suddenly there's this new space, a new interest in dialogue and empathy and, listening and so forth. So suddenly people are kind of interested in this. And so what we've been working on for 10 years, suddenly there's kind of like an interest in more of a space. And even though I still find, like you're talking about Indivisible and the progressives, that there's still that rigidity of us versus them, it's still there, but there's more space than there was before, it seems to me.
So it sounds like you're actually saying some of the similar things that Andrew is saying, that there are positive things that can come out of a crisis. And one of the things that you've noticed is that people are willing to have dialogues that they've really been avoiding for a long time. And the need for greater empathy is something you've been pointing out for a while and trying to get people to address. And it's taken something like this to actually make that happen.
Yeah, so yay. I feel heard.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess I think I just want to respond to that.
If you want to just select, if you want to speak back to me, or just select whoever you want to speak to first.
Yeah, I'll speak back to you. We'll give that a try. I think I empathize with that feeling, and with what Andrew has said as well, that there are things that we are accomplishing now and paying attention to now that we weren't addressing before. And so there is the potential for something really good to come out of this, that maybe will come out on the other side stronger and healthier than we were.
Okay, so what I've been saying and Andrew's saying kind of resonates, overlaps with what you're feeling, experiencing as well, that there's kind of a space now, and that through going through this, that we could, it creates an opportunity for something newer and better, stronger to emerge.
Yeah. At the same time, I I have a lot of anxiety and fear. I see where we can go and a better place where we can end up, but I also see a place where things could end very badly for everybody. And so that keeps me, really struggling every single day to try to get us to the better place, and not lose the things that really make this country great. So it's a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm. So you're really feeling a mixed bag of emotions. One, you see the potential, but there's also, you see that it could go a very other direction, very perhaps negative direction, and just that those possibilities you feel just tension or you feel, I'm hearing you're feeling anxious about that it's not guaranteed it's going to go in a positive direction.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Andrew.
All right.
Yeah, what's coming up? So I've been looking at different initiatives, how to bring empathy, kind of the message of empathy and dialogue, which is basically what we're doing here, where we can, slow down the conversations, really hear each other. I've been looking for ways of bringing that out into society more, and this is one way of doing it, is the empathy circle. So that's one way that I found very, fairly effective. So I'll pause there.
I'm curious to know how are you approaching that?
If you'd be willing to just reflect back what it is I was saying.
So I'm hearing that you're looking at exploring different ways of bringing empathy circles to broader society.
Exactly, and like we're doing here. And one way we did it is set up an empathy tent at left-right conflicts, which were in Berkeley, and we had the empathy tent there, and we had people come to the tent, and we listened to both sides, as well as, we walked around offering empathy kisses, which were, chocolate Hershey's kisses to everyone, gave people hugs, and just listened to, tell us what's going on for you, come to the tent. So we went and offered listening, and actually actively went out and, went to the different people on both sides and offered just to listen to them.
So I hear that you're feeling success over the empathy tent approach, and using that in some of these problematic scenarios, situations that had to do with alt-right people coming and so on.
Yeah, and the Trump supporters as well. And there's a rally, Impeach Trump rally, in July 2nd, and we're going to, in LA, we're going to go down to that and set up the empathy tent and offer empathic mediation, between both sides. So we're setting that up right now. So that's another initiative. And another one is actually around healthcare. We want to set up the empathy tent and offer listening, offer empathy circles, exactly what we're doing here with congressional representatives. So we bring in one representative from their district, and then 3 people that have perhaps they're on the ACA, have pre-existing conditions, or are very vulnerable to it being repealed or undermined, and have a deeper dialogue like we're doing here, where we slow down the conversation. You've got a longer period of time to talk besides the town hall where everybody's shouting at each other, and really hear each other more deeply and kind of model that deeper listening. So that's another initiative.
So you're excited about a empathy tent that you're going to be setting up down in LA, and also one around ACA to bring people who are perhaps vulnerable in this situation with congressional staffers from congressional representatives.
Not staffers, we're going for the representatives themselves.
For the representatives themselves, okay.
And we got the first one, Mark DeSaulnier. I talked to him last week. He's my representative here, and in the Contra Costa County, and he said he would do it. I told him about the work we were doing. He said, "Great, that sounds like therapy. I'll do it."
Fabulous.
So, yeah, just reflect that part.
Yeah, so you're going to be, Marc Desaulniers is going to be joining your empathy tent, and it sounds excited to do it.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Well, let's see. So I think I'll choose Karen. And so a couple of things that have come up for me. You know, one of the things I like is the thought that all the rises must converge. And one of the things that I was excited about when I heard about Edwin's proposal with the empathy circles is that it's convergent really with a couple of things that I was familiar with already. One is conflict resolution in the Montessori environment. Both of my daughters went through Montessori schools, and so did I. And also something that's new in teaching called quality circles for excellence, in which teachers observe each other, write down, well, record what they see, and then talk about it, which is kind of what we're doing here. And I love the idea, I love Edwin's ambition to bring these ideas, which I think are all, they converge because they make so much sense, to broader society. So I'll pause there.
Okay, thanks. So it sounds like you're noticing a lot of convergence of different ideas, and the convergence between the work that Edwin is doing on empathy circles and some of the work that you've seen done in Montessori schools, and the work with teachers, also helping each other understand and each other and improve their teaching by talking to each other and providing supportive feedback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess the thought I have about this is that a silver lining. You know, I like that we're finding positive things coming out of this, and in the same way that this feels like this is testing our institutions. If we can come out the other side, and that's an if, that they may come out stronger for that, and that could be in the end a good thing. And it's also, it really does feel like, because we're sort of being pushed all the way to our extremes, we're really clarifying, everybody is being forced to clarify their own values in a way that we haven't had to do for decades. And that's refreshing.
Yeah. So sounds like, again, you're finding things that are actually potentially positive about this situation. And one of those things is that our institutions may actually come out stronger in the end if we succeed. And another is that it forces us, because we're being driven to the extremes, to actually think through what we believe and why we believe it, and figure out what we really care about.
Right. Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Yeah, great. Let's see. Where am I right now? I think I'd like to talk to Jessica. Jessica, there are so many things I want to say to you. First is you don't give yourself enough credit. You're like you're like, as a member of SMART, I've seen you like grow so much, and your commitment is just unbelievable. So first of all, I want to thank you for all of that. Whenever I'm feeling frustrated or a little bit down about the progress the group is making, I see something by you and that you post, or and I'm like, yay! Okay. We're on the right track. We're accomplishing things.
I agree.
Jessica's on board. I know everything's going to be okay. So first, that's the first thing.
That was a hell of a compliment. Thank you. I'm reflecting though. I'm reflecting. Your appreciation for the fact that I'm screaming at fewer conservatives, for the fact that I'm growing and committed to smart.
Great. And
are we lagging?
We're lagging, so I'm having a little trouble following you, but I think I got it. Or I think I heard your reflection, and I guess the other thing I want you to know is that this is really, really, really hard work, and I think I've told you that before, but it's important to give yourself a lot of credit for what you do and not beat up on yourself for what you do. Whenever you're able to have a conversation with someone you disagree with profoundly about things that matter to you, without being mean to each other, that's something to be proud of and chalk up as a victory. And one of the good things to know is it gets easier with practice. So as hard as it is now, it's only going to get better.
So you want me to know that sort of talking with people who disagree with sort of your core values is difficult, and that it's painful, and it's important to know that, and to be sort of patient with your own responses, and not to beat yourself up for not being perfect about it, because it's hard. And you want me to know that with more practice, talking with people you disagree with and sort of reevaluating your core emotional tenets gets easier.
Yeah, I feel heard.
She felt heard, so it's your turn, Jessica, to select someone.
Oh, are we losing?
Oh, that didn't come through. Okay, I will talk with Andrew.
All right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, but there's a several second delay. I'm wondering if maybe it would be helpful to try log off and log in again, maybe? I don't know. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, it seems to be about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to try that, just exit and enter again. That could clear it up. We'll just take a little pause here.
Okay, here I am.
Yeah.
Much better.
Much better.
Oh, that is better. Yeah, okay. So I have sort of two disparate responses to what's been going on. The first is that, or what's been discussed. The first is that I see some of the upside too. So it is cool for me to feel part of something larger and something I'm sure is really important. The other thing is totally unrelated, so I'm pausing there.
Okay, so you're feeling a couple of different things in response to what we've been talking about. One is that you're feeling that you're part of something bigger, and that's a good thing for you.
Right. And I think so much of what we all do every day, we're not 100% sure is important. You know, we reorganize the spoons and stuff. So I think that's my view on what the best part of this is that, like, feeling like I have an overarching purpose at least some of the time.
So while you're feeling like you can't always be sure that what you're doing is effective, that because of you're part of this bigger effort, that it feels like it's all important anyway. Am I phrasing that right?
Yeah.
Right?
So just, yeah. And I mean, in my day-to-day job, I'm a tutor for very privileged kids, and I really enjoy my work, but I'm not saving the world. So I think feeling like the upsides of the Trump regime, and I think that's it for me, is spending at least some of my time doing something I know matters.
Okay, so you're feeling like while what you're doing is, can I rephrase a little bit or paraphrase that while what you're doing is important for some people, that what you're doing as part of this is important for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank
okay.
you.
Uh-huh.
That was better than a rephrase. That was, yeah. Yeah. And so my unrelated response was, I've recently read some research talking about how, so there's this sort of concept or phenomenon of, I believe they use the phrase amygdala hijacking or limbic system hijacking, where we're sufficiently upset about something we just can't learn. And so the research I read said that for teenagers, that phenomenon sort of goes triple. So it's true for all of us, but the sort of neurology of the teenage brain says that when something sufficiently upsetting is going on, information doesn't get in. And because I'm one-on-one with teenagers in my daily job, that has really been driven home for me. I'm going to pause for a sec.
So what's your understanding of teenage neurology is that that when the amygdala is activated, that this can cause a freezing of the mental state, or
Right.
lack of ability to incorporate new information.
Exactly. Yeah. My understanding of the human brain, in fact, but it's extra true for teenagers, is what this research was saying. And I've been seeing that sort of play out on the day-to-day, and it's been fascinating. You know, I normally, my kid shows up and I say, like, hey, how's life or something, and I've been trying to ask sort of better questions, and I've been getting better answers, and it's fascinating the amount of sort of emotional stuff that is standing in the way of these kids learning the linear algebra that I'm trying to teach them, or whatever. And I've sort of in response gotten sometimes a description of these big, deep emotional episodes that would distract and confuse anybody. And so I work with teenagers, but it has fascinated me to think about how that applies to the rest of us, and that, like, if we're carrying around this overwhelming economic anxiety, or this overwhelming need for acceptance, or this overwhelming guilt, or whatever the case may be, like, that's going to stand in the way of political change too.
Mm-hmm. So you're observing in your teenagers that their overwhelming emotional experiences are getting in the way of their learning about linear algebra, and that this may be something that applies to broader society.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. So I'll ask Edwin to be my listener.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other upsides, I think, for me has been to do some understanding also about neurology. And there is a really interesting paper that Jessica, I could send you if you're interested, it's about the phenomenon of seize and freeze, where in a crisis, people will latch onto a frame, and it's almost impossible to knock them out of that frame. And so it's much easier to have an influence over their reactions, over people's reactions to things before the amygdala is activated. I'll pause there.
Okay, so you're also seeing upsides, other upsides, but you're also addressing the nature of fear, that when people are afraid, and looking at the neurology of it, that when people become afraid, they grab onto a frame and kind of really hold on to that, or maybe like an idea, and that, yeah, that's what I was kind of getting.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's right. Yeah. So, and the thing, I think one of the things that really does deeply frighten me is this possibility, which, you know, reaches back into history, and it touches on another wonderful book that I have been reading by Tim Snyder, who's a professor of history at Yale, called On Tyranny, and it's lessons from the 20th century about autocracy, and the fear that I have, and I think is honestly well grounded, is that something like the Reichstag fire, which was what the Nazis exploited to come into power, could happen again. And so I think the thing that I've been trying to work on, and is part of an initiative within Indivisible Berkeley, is how to prepare people for, or how to prepare, not people, but how to prepare for a Reichstag fire kind of event, you know, that could be exploited by the current administration to consolidate power and to restrict liberties.
Mm-hmm. So there's this aspect of when fear happens, that people grab onto a simple frame, and can lead to sort of like authoritarianism, and that you're looking at this, that looking through history, that those moments like that with the Reichstag in Germany, where a moment of fear like that, it was, you know, they were able to bring in authoritarianism. So you're looking at how, in a situation like that, how can you address that? What can you do in moments like that to keep that from happening?
Yeah. And I guess the one final piece to that is just thinking about how, you know, it's almost impossible, and this is what, well, I'll reach back to a wonderful talk that Arlie Hochschild and George Lakoff gave in Berkeley. And Arlie was very specific. She was worried about exactly this scenario. And she said, you know, what we need to be doing, she was talking to Indivisible, what you need to be doing is reaching out across the country. There's 6,000 chapters of Indivisible. In Indivisible, we need to be reaching across this divide, which is just what SMART is about, right? I mean, and so I think this is really important, and it's building community and building resilience in the face of what is really a quite dangerous situation, I think. So,
so you're saying this is really a dangerous situation. You're referencing books as well as talks by like Arlie Hochschild. So, and she's talking about the same thing, has the same concern that you do, in the sense of this dangerous moment that might happen that leads to authoritarianism, and saying that some kind of a program or plan should be created through like the Indivisibles. We should reach out. And it sounds like the approach is to really cross the political divide, is a way of addressing, kind of preparing to address a situation like this.
Yeah. And I think I'll say one more thing, which is I share Karen's perception that Indivisible is actually rather insular, or maybe a better way to put it is kind of provincial, in the sense that it's overwhelmingly composed of you know, white middle class folks, and that's actually not really exactly a criticism, because it's a very, very hard problem. But it's something that is probably maybe the most important thing that Indivisible could be doing, is reaching out to all the other communities, all the other cultures, all the other nations within the United States to build bridges.
Okay, so you do see a sort of a parochialism of Indivisible Berkeley, kind of some of it kind of overlapping with what Karen was saying. And really the thing that you see as kind of the way forward would be to reach out to other communities and build bridges is kind of like a core step. So,
And I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Jessica. Yeah, that resonates with me. The reaching out, building bridges, and being explicit about fostering empathy. Because for me, I see the response to fear is the fight, flight, freeze, or empathy. So I see it as one of the responses. That if you're in a fearful state, the thing that kind of calms you down is when someone listens to you. Right? They say, oh, you're feeling afraid. They acknowledge the fear. They hear your fear. They hear your concern. And it's like you just feel yourself, oh, I feel a little calmer. I feel a little, So I just see that empathy building is kind of one of those responses. And it's kind of saying the same thing as building bridges.
So what Andrew said really resonated with you. You're all about building empathy, and you feel like sort of Indivisible reaching out to these other organizations within the US is sort of another branch of empathy. And so we've been talking about kind of this fight or flight response, or this autonomic panic, and you really feel like empathy and understanding and feeling heard and feeling like someone is witnessing your fear can take you out of that state and get you back on a better path.
Yeah, it creates a connection, and as you get calmer, you can start coming up with more creative solutions to problems. And I had one kind of a real experience. I did this freestyle dance, here in Berkeley, and I was in the dance, and I was feeling, I feel some anxiety and fear kind of in my core. And instead of just kind of ignoring it or something, I said, okay, I'm going to dance into it. So I started moving. I said, I want to get as close as possible to this fear. I could feel it kind of in this part of my body. And I said, I wanted to fill my awareness. And I want to be able to feel the fear in kind of the granular level, kind of like pixels, zoom in to the microscopic pixels. What is that fear, the quality of that fear? And I danced and kind of did it and got closer to it. And I thought, this anxiety is like thousands of little knives, just cutting away inside me. And I got closer and closer to it, and it kind of just disappeared. And I said, that's kind of cool. That anxiety is gone. And within about 5 seconds, I became aware of another anxiety, which was a whole different feel of like a heavy cloud kind of pushing down on my head, and kind of a numbness. And I said, okay, there's another fear. Let's go check that one out. And so I danced into that and, kind of got into it. And for the next hour of the dance, I went from one kind of fear to the other. And at the end of it, I felt in such bliss. It was amazing how it's I kind of transitioned through from one fear to the other. So it was like a real visceral experience of going into fear, search for the fear, get close to the fear, meet the fear, and then it kind of transforms it. So anyway, that was and then I really saw the importance of addressing fear. I mean, that's a lot, but,
I think I get what you're saying. So you sort of had this personal experience with fear. So you were at the freestyle dance and you felt this kind of fear and anxiety go through your core. And rather than trying to run away from it or pretend it wasn't happening, you sort of said, okay, let's examine it. Let's go into it. And you sort of dove into the minutia of what the fear and anxiety felt like, and you found that it was changing and shifting, and it lasted a long time. It lasted about an hour, but you just sort of sat with it and felt it and experienced it. And at the end, you felt really good. You felt this bliss. And I think, just go ahead.
Oh, it was a little different in that there was a fear I became aware of. I went into it and it kind of dissipated. But then another one popped up, within about 5 seconds, another one. I went into that one and it, eventually dissipated. And then another one came up. So it was there's like fear after fear, and they all had different shapes and feel to them. So it was just a kind of a real visceral exploration of the nature of fear.
So you had sort of a smorgasbord of fear, and one fear after the other.
But I transformed them. I went through them. That was a success. It was like the
Right, but it ended well.
Yeah, it ended well. I feel heard.
And so, okay, wow.
Yeah, that was my time too. So thank you.
Sure. Okay, and I think we have a few minutes left.
We have 10 minutes left.
Okay. Okay.
About 2 rounds, or about 1 more round, and then we should probably close. So yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll talk to Karen this time. And so I was reflecting on, Edwin, like the larger sort of political analogy of what you're saying. So I think I experience things the same way in terms of if you bury fear or anxiety or whatever, it grows 10 times stronger and crops back up when you least expect it. And I think that's true of kind of political or national scale fear as well. So I think what you may have been saying, or at least what I thought about in response is, yeah, so if we're seeing these sort of, I'd call them ugly behaviors like racism, do we dance into the fear by examining the racism and learning about it and seeing where it came from and honestly dealing with it? Or do we try to chase it off by saying, you know, you're an asshole, you're a racist asshole?
Okay, yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you're drawing a parallel between kind of the individual emotional experience and dynamic to the social expression of emotions and dynamics. So for the individual, we all know if you just take your bad emotions and try to repress them, chances are you're going to pay some kind of consequence down the line. They don't just go away of their own accord most of the time, particularly if they're rooted in something that's actually important to you. And so eventually they're going to come back and get you. And you're starting to think in terms of maybe we should view emotions and beliefs and attitudes in society the same way, that it's not enough to just ignore them or tell them to go away, that you actually have to deal with them and confront them, or they're going to cause more trouble down the line.
Exactly right. Yeah. 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 I feel like I had a thought a second ago and I just completely lost track of it. Yeah. But anyway, and I also think, you know, negative emotions come from somewhere. So, you know, if you have such and such experience that gave you such and such characteristic, you know, I think it's sort of the same thing on the political stage. You know, we've talked a lot about economic anxiety in the white middle class, and I see sort of that parallel as well. So can we expect people to be super progressive if they're worried about paying the bills? Probably not. So I think, yeah, I see this parallel between how we should treat negative emotions in ourselves and how we should treat them on the national stage.
So you are observing that we can't separate people's beliefs and attitudes from their experiences. If they are living in one particular world and one particular experience, then it follows that their beliefs and attitudes are going to come out of that, and we kind of have to meet them where they are, not have unreasonable expectations.
Right. And I'll say one more thing about that. The meeting them where they are reminded me that phrase was used exactly by a new friend I made at the pool bar on my vacation. And I was just amazed by this person. So I liked him immediately. We were talking about sort of how we grew up, and he was a military brat. And I asked him what it was like, and he said, he thought it was good. It gave him a lot of perspective, but he said that he was watching the movie Inside Out on the plane and started sobbing. He said it unleashed something. And so I just immediately liked this guy. And the next thing out of his mouth was how he'd made a new Republican friend from Nebraska who had referred to him as my homo friend. And he said sort of all his friends were up in arms, and his response was, listen to the tone in his voice. He doesn't mean it nasty. And he used that phrase, you have to meet people where they are. So obviously I begged him to join SMART and sent him the link, but it really, it drove home for me the power of kind of being this calm, kind witness who can meet people where they are. He was just naturally so good at it.
Yeah. So you are telling a story about meeting kind of an amazing new person who demonstrated for you the power of this kind of attitude toward life and people, and understanding that just because a person isn't fully what's the term?
Woke.
Woke. Yes, isn't fully woke. That doesn't mean that they don't have a lot to offer as a human being. And people can be really good people and still have a lot of really hurtful beliefs and do a lot of hurtful things. It's part of being human.
Roughly 100% of us, right? Thank you. That was great.
Okay, then thank you. So maybe we could just have a closing comment, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, just to stay within our time here. So I'll start. Just say thank you for taking part, and I hope we can continue these conversations. We'll be doing another one with some conservatives, and then some of us we can actually have different circles and come together with them and have the same kind of a dialogue. And I hope we can do more of these with SMART and through SMART and and other groups as well. So I really enjoyed it and would like to keep the ball rolling. And so thank you very much. And if anybody else would like to just jump in, we'll close with a few comments.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I'd like to express my gratitude to you, Edwin, for setting this up. I think it's great, and I'd be very interested in continuing.
Yeah, I also am very grateful, Edwin, particularly that you took so much initiative to make sure that this got off the ground when people were a little hesitant initially to jump on board. I think during this example is going to be really important for people going forward, so they know what to expect. I've had a great time, and it's always, I talk with all of these people online all the time, but I very rarely get to feel like I'm meeting anyone face to face, even via Skype, or have a real conversation. So it's been great in that respect, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again.
Okay, thank you. And we'll stop the broadcast with that beautiful closing.